If you haven't already seen, 2.5 will be the first version with this new rotating banner thing. You can kinda choose one out of the 3 characters to pull for, and PT is shared across all of them. It is a lot easier for players to pull the characters that they want or may have missed out on, and they don't have to worry about them being held in rerun jail. But on the other hand, it also means there are a lot more 5 stars to consider pulling for, like there are literally a total of 6 5 stars in a single patch, and makes it a lot harder to decide which characters players want to pull for. And that's kind of what we're looking at today. I'm going to help you break down which characters or light cones are good, and hopefully help you better understand which characters or light cones you want to pull for. For the first half of version 2.5, the new banner is Feixiao. I've already done a video on whether you should be pulling Feixiao and her strength, so you can check that out as I will not be going into detail in this video. But she's basically a really strong unit that is comparable to Firefly and Acheron. If Acheron is the best at 5 and Firefly is the best at 3 targets, Feixiao is the best at 1 to 2 targets. The issue is that she's a damage dealer, and her usage will naturally be lower than supports who can be used in many teams, like Robin, who is in fact rerunning at the same time. I might have said this before, but Robin is basically the god support for fast attacking teams like follow-ups. But if you find a way to get around her energy cost, like with Tingyun, Huo or even Gallagher with Quid Pro Quo, you can increase her usability in exchange for having a slightly more restricted team because you have to run that energy regen unit. Robin right now is one of the best supports we have, and I imagine it will continue to be for at least a few patches if I'm being pessimistic. Robin just provides very strong buffs on top of having a full team 100% action advance, and since we currently don't have better supports for teams like DOT or even some hypercarry teams, Robin can be used in a lot of them. And that is why I think Robin has the highest value pool in the entire 2.5 version. Kafka and Black Swan fill the same niche, the DOT team. Like I've just said, due to a lack of a niche support that exists solely for DOT, DOT has been kind of falling behind slowly. Due to how DOT works, it takes a while for the enemies to actually take the damage because it is backloaded damage, and even when they do take this damage, it is not high enough to be rewarding or competitive with other teams. I do not doubt that you can get 3 stars with this DOT team in Memory of Chaos and stuff like that, but it is currently one of the slower teams, and I imagine will continue to be one of the slower teams until they get their own DOT support, like Robin for follow-ups. The light cones are not the most valuable as well, because they have added pretty good 4-star alternatives for all of these characters, and so the only 2 light cones I think can be a decent investment is I Venture Forth to Hunt and Flowing Nightglow. Now for the second half of version 2.5, we have Lingsha and Topaz. I don't quite have a video on Lingsha yet, but she is basically female Gallagher with follow-ups and more healing. I think a lot of people think she's bad, but it doesn't really paint the full picture. She's definitely slightly better than Gallagher, and that's what makes people think she's bad. But honestly, I think it might actually have more to do with Gallagher just being a very strong free unit. Because if you look at the kit and compare them to their pre-existing characters, you would notice that there isn't that much of a difference between them. And hence this might deter a lot of people from pulling for Lingsha because they already have Gallagher, which I think is quite understandable. He does have follow-ups though, so she can be used as a temporary replacement for Aventurine if you don't have him, but her best team will definitely be in break teams like with Firefly. Hence, if the other units do not interest you at all and you want to make your Firefly team even stronger, Lingsha is definitely not a bad choice, especially when the next patch, Rappa, is rumored to also be a break carry. In every other scenario, however, I think it's probably going to be a pretty bad investment unless you just like her as a character. Finally, we have Topaz, who is a follow-up support and damage dealer at the same time, kind of like Kafka for DOT teams. Topaz has a similar role for follow-up teams. Her individual damage is not the highest, but she makes up for it with her Nami mechanic and Proof of Depth. She will get more actions and hence more damage whenever an ally attacks the target with Proof of Depth with follow-ups, while also increasing that ally's damage because Proof of Depth basically multiplies your follow-up damage by 1.5 times. Hence, Topaz has quite a symbiotic relationship with other follow-up damage dealers because she helps them to do more damage, but they also help Topaz to do more damage. Naturally, I would only recommend pulling for her if you have follow-up damage dealers or you are going to pull full out damage dealers in the future. Her value would have been much higher 1 to 2 patches ago, but they recently added Hunt March and will be releasing Mose half a patch before her, who fulfills a very similar role to Topaz. Like Mose is quite literally a free-to-play or budget Topaz, as he has his own vulnerability, but just a smaller amount, and this will obviously decrease Topaz's value, especially for more free-to-play players who are fine with making do with Mose or Hunt March. However, if you do want the best follow-up team, then you would definitely be pulling for her. For the Litecoins, I believe Worrisome Blissful has a slightly higher value, even if it's not really the best signature Litecoin out there. It gives you crit rate, follow-up damage boost, and can increase your crit damage by 24% against enemies with the tame state. It doesn't increase Topaz damage by an insane amount, but just like a kit, it leans more towards being a supportive light cone, and is definitely a decent choice if you want to invest more into a follow-up team. For Lingsha, her light cone is very similar to Jiao Qiu's, a stat stick with extra vulnerability, and that is why I don't think it's really worth people's pulls at all, unless you just really like Lingsha, or have the pulls to spare for 5-5 team, like if you already have 5-5 E2 and so on. 18% vulnerability just isn't a whole lot, but what it really does is solidifies her position over Gallagher, which is quite funny because Gallagher can use this light cone as well. And it also doesn't really help that we have some pretty good abundance light cones already. That's pretty much it for this video, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.